Alright. More Kerbal Space Program. More career mode. More fun. More radiation. So, let's get it ticked off. Let's just refresh my chat so I can actually see what everyone says if they do actually watch this, which, you know, we know how that goes. So, what we're going to do today, I'm going to put some nuclear engines into orbit, finally, in the form of our new transfer stage, our new moon transfer phase. I guess actually it'll be our Minmus transfer stage. I expect to probably keep using the one that's currently in service for moon transfers for at least a little while. It's been a couple days, so I gotta look and see what else we have for contracts. Some interesting stuff. Some orbital trajectory over Duna. Thing is, I don't want to close this contract just yet. I got plenty of time to do it. I just don't want to do it yet so I can keep using those engines. But what we need to do, last time I did save our transfer vehicle, our new transfer vehicle, somewhere in here. Nuclear transfer vehicle contains experimental parts. Correct. They are correct. It does contain experimental parts, and that's on purpose. These nuclear engines, they're expensive as all get out, but we have them. I'm just happy to have them for a minute. They're going to pay off. If we use these continuously in space as a transfer vehicle, it will indeed pay off. So, what I'm going to do... Control point reversed. Okay. Good. You can change that afterwards. And then I'm learning things. Now, this is a heavy craft. So almost 24 tons, which is very convenient because we have a 24-ton launcher, don't we? Arcade 24, a G1. So now we just need to make this into a viable payload. So let's go ahead and do that. We need a TD-12 decoupler. We need some aero shell. Should be a fairing for the layman. Or the layperson, I guess, nowadays, since everything must be sensitive. Let's see. So this should work. This should be fine. I do need to have some retro rockets this time, and remember to do that. I always forget to do that on my payloads. But this looks quite good. We're not overweight. Not by a long shot. Is it just me, or is this a little crooked? Maybe not. Maybe I'm just losing my mind. Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay. Maybe it's twisted maybe a little bit. So I do need to add those little retro boosters. Little Septrons. You know, you cats, I think you're just trying to drive me crazy. Alright, and then we want to put those on the Sepratron. Not the Sepratron, though. That thing. Stack separator, thank you. My brain wasn't working. Alright. Oh, these are a little crooked. How'd that happen? Because these ones aren't centered on their thinger. Now it's uncentered the other way. There we go. Some auto strut, which is basically cheating, but you know, whatever. Just realized I was watching old stream there on the background, so I hope I was getting any chat that might have been there. Not that anyone's watching. That's a thing that I need to be, conscious of. Usually people don't watch this crap. I like my content. Alright, now. Now, this is going to be interesting. We are ready to launch our nuclear-powered transfer vehicle. Now, the trick with these nuclear-powered transfer vehicles, or any nuclear-powered vehicle, they use only liquid fuel. There is no oxidizer, because actually that's a real thing. Nuclear engines are a real thing that were developed, never really used, but they were in fact developed, all the way to having usable test articles. And basically, how they work is they superheat the propellant and eject it out the back of the thruster without any oxidizer. It's just being superheated by running through a grid of nuclear charged metal. So, super hot. They don't provide a lot of thrust compared to chemical rockets, but they do have an insane amount of specific impulse. In real life, the difference of a maximum of, say, 450 specific impulse versus, I think, 100 is, I think, almost 900 directions. So, insanely efficient. In the game, it's the difference between about 380 maximum chemical rocket ISP vacuum versus, I think, 800 on the dot. So we really want to have those, that's for sure. Having those will be pretty cool. So driving our apogee up. I'm going to try and shallow out our trajectory as well for our next stage engines. They actually stand a chance. This Poodle's driving a lot of weight behind it. And now needs to work very hard to shallow out this orbit. You can now blow the fairing now. Saves us a little bit of weight. You can now see the transfer vehicle. Keeping us aimed up slightly just so we don't run into our apogee too early and start our descent again before we've gotten orbital velocity. Poodle engines are now at the most efficient altitude. Getting everything ready on the transfer vehicle. driving that apogee in front of us. I'm going to nose down a little bit though and just try and accelerate a little faster. These Poodle engines, they're not the greatest. They're good for what we're using them for right now, but they're just barely squeaking by. Gonna hold them probably up a little bit. Keep our angle of attack just a little high. Keep working on it. Don't want to let. I'm going to go a little higher. Don't want to end up running into our apogee. So we'll keep driving it in front of us. This is doing a little better job of it. This is going to give us a higher than intended apogee. Use more fuel on our apogee rather than leveling out our perigee. However, falling back towards Kerbin is not a good way to get to orbit, so we are also straining this K-24 rocket to the very extreme edge of what it's capable of. I'm questioning if I can get to... Yeah, I'm going to need to stage by the looks of it. Probably because of all that time we just spent keeping our apogee up. So I will need to flip this thing around and accelerate itself into the final bit of orbit, which shouldn't be too bad. We are now descending again, but we're almost up to orbital velocity. Looks like we might just get barely to orbit, maybe, possibly, with a low apogee, or low perigee, I mean. Before this cuts out. Nope. Well, the one time I remember the retro thrusters, we didn't actually need them. So we're going to switch this over to retrograde, since this is currently set to upside down. And then we're going to accelerate the rest of the way for the first time on our nuclear stage, which is an insane amount of delta V. So we are now getting into orbit quite safely. Okay. See, perigee, apogee. Yep. Okay. It's an eccentric orbit, but we made it. We now change control point back to default. So he's going to flip around because we were telling it to aim retrograde. So that's good. Cancel this maneuver node. We can now aim back prograde, actually. And we can leave this in orbit for the moment. We are going to end up launching a big old fuel tank to it, take off to the Minmus station. But there we go. There's our nuclear stage. I, for whatever reason, remember these getting quite hot, and I ended up putting radiators on them. I don't know if that's actually still the case, if the radiators are helping, whatever the case may be, but I figure if I'm going to spend 10,000 credits on each nuclear engine, I might as well just spend a couple credits on radiators just to be safe. But there we go. There's our new, here's a new transfer vehicle. Not too shabby. So we need to see what else is going on around here. Debdorf's craft is on a decaying orbit. I'm just going to follow it for a minute. Make sure it actually does decay and fall back to Kerbin. One more piece of space debris that I really don't care to have around. My cats are being just wonderful right now. Hey, Rigby. Rigby. What are you getting into? What even are you doing? Sometimes I really wonder about that cat. Make sure one more time this thing has a safe orbit. Yep. Alright, this thing is definitely working on decaying. Its entire orbit is now in the atmosphere. And switching to this just gives us a chance for it to finally go away. Because otherwise it will just keep on rails and continue to clutter space. Alright, is now back on a impact. An impact course. Of course, it will not let us switch vehicles while in atmosphere because that would be, that would make too much sense. I want to see if I can, like, disable that as a thing. Like, I get it. They don't want you to accidentally leave something with crew on it in orbit that's just in atmosphere that's just going to burn up and explode. But considering I can't even get rid of space debris that's supposed to burn up without switching to it and watching it over and over again, I think that's not much of a concern. You'd think they'd just let me just back out and let it do its thing. And somehow this thing isn't burning up. It's remarkable. It has no ablator. Just question all those times I used the heat shield on normal Kerbin re-entries. Better safe than sorry, I guess. There we go. Gonzo. There's a piece of space debris that is gone. Thank the Lord. We can finally do something else. And our nuclear transfer vehicle is in orbit. Let's see what else we got going on the tracking station. We do have a sun satellite that's been in orbit now for a month of actual time, I think. It's still got 27 days. It's still got 27 days to come up on its next maneuver. This thing's taking so long. Oh, it's been a real life month of this thing out doing its intended orbit. This monstrosity, which granted the signal's actually fairly weak. I hope I'm still in contact when I do that next burn. And this, of course, now has the nerfed AJ-10 on it. It's kind of a shame. But this is a very old satellite. This is like one of our oldest satellites. And it's still on its way. It's on its way to independent solar orbit in a desired orbit and closing out that contract. So I might need to do something just to make sure its signal's boosted a little bit. Our Eve probe, I don't think I ever figured out even a proper course for this to even get into a path to Eve. This is yet another very old craft. I realize much later on down the road that I have been ignoring these. I mean, I kind of knew I was ignoring them. But you see, we're on a higher orbit right now. and we're behind it, which is bad. Now, I could just stop being a moron. And I think I'm going to try and do some maneuvers and see if we can't get lucky here. Still have this reversed fairing, which is making this really weird because it's just kind of keeping it for some reason. Never did figure out why I was keeping it. Looks kind of cool, I guess, as a result. I think what I'm going to try and do is bring it into a lower orbit. Our inclination is a little different. Okay, shouldn't that be Oh! Nope, it finally figured out that it's not supposed to have that fairing there. And it was just roasting the fairing. It was working before. So it seems like they've corrected some game physics. Well, let's melt it off then. Come on. Oh, okay. That was bad. That was very bad. Well, I am now disconnected, so I was hoping that fairing was going to blow and leave everything else, but that was too much to ask for. And I no longer now have radio contact, which is a little strange because I've got the relays right here, and the relays are intact and have power. So shouldn't I be passing the signal through the relay? Well, I guess we need a new, we need a new Eve probe. And, possibly a, Duna probe. We have this interesting relay now. And this, very dead probe. I'm not quite sure why this is difficult now, why this is being a pain. I should be able to pass... I don't get it. I should be able to pass signal through this relay. Because the relay definitely... Is it because it doesn't have a core of some kind? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe just because I have no core on there. So maybe the whole principle of this was flawed. Well, that's a shame. Well, guess I don't have to worry about that one. Let's come up with something new then. Let's check on our other craft we got going on around here. Independent solar orbit. So we still have this guy. Although this is now out of radio contact. It's just kind of doing its thing. That's our Sentinel. So I was dumb enough to put just one little antenna on this. I don't know what I was thinking on that one, but telescope misaligned with Kerbin. Oh, yep, so it is. Well, that's another dead one. Can't even get to the thing to rename it. Anything that's left Kerbin's sphere of influence is basically toast at this point, unfortunately. Sunsat 1, also dead. This is a very old satellite. Next we have Adventurer 1. Let's see what's happening with Adventurer 1. This thing was a beast of its time. It's closed so many contracts. You may eventually have an encounter with something. And this thing. This was a temporary network patch for Minmus. Hang on. Just check on something. Yep. Okay, there we go. So this thing, completely out of fuel, out of contact somehow. But this was a temporary network patch for Minmus. Did a flyby right when we needed our network. And, yeah, it's doing some craziness. It's going way out there. So, yeah, pretty much all this is junk except, except our Sunset 2. It's the only thing that actually has radio contact. And it looks like it might be losing its radio contact fairly soon. Because it is barely holding on to that. Alright, well, while I come up with what we're going to do for a probe, I think I might put some new rockets on the books. So we've got a little bit of a gap now, thanks to the rebalance that was done in the last update. We've got a little bit of a missing payload category. I'll explain that in just a second here. So, our K-24, 32,000. This is 24 tons to orbit. We just saw that earlier in this, and I'm gonna probably tweak and fix this here because it is driving me absolutely up the wall. Now it's even. Wunderbar. Alright, we're gonna put that now and replace the K-24G1. Yep, okay. Oops. Oh, don't do that. Didn't keep its twin. Those are roughly level, right? That's better. Okay, so the K-24, we know this launches a 24-ton payload, 32.5 abouts for cost. We've got a K-20, which now no longer probably gets 20 tons to orbit, and it is significantly more expensive than the K-24, so this thing is junk, basically. To the point that I might actually, on the rare instance, actually delete something, because this will not be useful again. Alright. So that makes our next Actually, let's just get rid of this habitat module thing. Don't need that anymore, right? Oh yeah, that's right. I have one of those in orbit. I might just do some cleanup today then. Deployable satellite I'll keep. And lander Mark II. This we're gonna end up tweaking quite a bit, I think. I'm gonna keep it for now. This also is trash. Don't need that anymore. Doesn't really make any sense to use that anymore. K8. This is really just a K7, isn't it? Just a stretched K7. Get rid of that. Now the K7, this is one that we have that's very reliable and actually makes a lot of sense to keep using. It's basically a Titan 3. Kind of a unintentional cloning there, although it does work very well. And only 10,500 credits, so it's got about a 7-ton payload compared to the 24-ton of the 32,000 credit K24. So yeah, this is pretty reasonable. This is one we want to keep using. This is junk. No longer need that. Crew launch vehicle. The K5, G3. This now costs more than the K7. This is the kind of rebalancing damage I'm talking about here. If I take the fins off, which I think actually proved to be detrimental, then we're a little cheaper. Not by much, but a little cheaper. I wonder if it would just be cheaper to put a Yeah, I think this might go. I'll hold on to it for now. I think a K7 without the boosters would probably be smarter. Let's see, a K4 is about the same. Same thing, you take the wings off, it's not so bad. K3, G3, this is built for lunar transfer, so this one's actually probably a good idea to keep. It is actually pretty cheap with the fins off as well, 9,500. So yeah, this one, because it's already set up for lunar transfer, I'm going to just make sure I update this. The KEO launcher, same thing, don't need the fins. And it is about the right capacity for a good satellite, so we're going to just keep that one. Getting rid of those fins. Lunar transfer again. This is the Gen 2 version. Gen 2 version, see, this is actually one thing I need to get back to. This two-thud, single-reliant engine pattern. Actually, it's pretty close to what you would have seen on a Thor or an early Delta. Is a pair of vernier engines for roll control and an engine about with this combined capability. Keep those for the moment. For nostalgia, the old ones that we used so many times. And of course our K15, I'm going to hold on to, but for 28,759 credits, and it doesn't really work as smooth as I'd like. I think we can do better. I think we can top this without too much issue. It's also a smaller diameter top, so it is a little bit of a pain to launch some of the larger payloads that are meant for it. Usually 12 or 15-ton payloads, so I'm going to actually just design something new, I think. I don't even think I'm going to necessarily test it, because I've done a lot of the math, and I have something in mind. So I think I might just kind of be happy to roll with it. long first stage tank. Okay. Adapter up to a wider diameter. Now, here's where I'm going to bring back, like I said, that older engine pattern. I did change it out for the Bobcat in a lot of cases, although I do actually have a Vector engine, too. That's tempting to play with, the Vector. I do have it only because of a contract. It is really expensive. It's 18,000 credits. So I wouldn't really want to use that on something I throw away. Maybe that'd be like a space shuttle type engine. I'm gonna save that, of course. The Bobcat, which is based on a real engine, this does have just a little less thrust than if I put the Reliant. Oh, thanks for the virus protection. This does have a little less thrust than if I just combined a Reliant and 2 Thuds. And the Thuds are a little less efficient than the Bobcat. The Reliant is also just a little less efficient. And the combination of a Reliant and 2 Thuds does way more than a Bobcat as well. So it's not like the perfect option here, but when you need more thrust and you already have a lot of payload, so the weight difference doesn't make a big difference, I think this is gonna be what I want to go with. Like, I think if I compare, right, if I put a Bobcat on, the other thing is gonna be gimbal control. This only has a 5-degree gimbal control. This has an 8. So let's just look, right? 5,154 delta V. 5,154. Let's see how much of a difference there really is. 4,421. Actually, quite a bit. I think I still need to stick with this, though. I don't think the Bobcat would have enough thrust. I didn't do any of the math figuring that out. I'm just going to merge some of these in. Plus, I just kind of want the nostalgia points of having something that looks kind of like a real rocket here. Since I already kind of have a Delta 4, which would be the K-24. See what it would look like to have a Delta 3. Looks pretty good. That, I think, looks pretty good. So the 2 little vernier engines is going to help roll control, which is the problem I have on all my rockets pretty much, is a uncontrolled roll as I go into driving me crazy. Neat. So, gives me kind of what a Delta 3 and a Delta 2 and a Thor engine would be, like an RS-27. The pair roll control and the center main engine here. So, now, getting to the meat of this. The whole point of this setup. Now we can look at a more powerful second stage. The Cheetah's not going to cut it for a heavier payload, which is why I'm doing something different than our little Titan design. Now what we need is a Poodle. Which again, not terribly off from what you would expect on a Delta 3. short fuel tank. And look at our price. Our price is still very low. This is what I wanted. Now we want separatrons, radial decouplers, rather. Go with 4 of them first, because I want to fill this gap. Like I said, I've got... This K15 is basically not useful anymore, so I've got a big gap between a K7 and a K24. That's a big difference between 7 tons to orbit and 24 tons to orbit. So what I want something here that's maybe good enough for 12. About 12 tons to orbit. So let's do that. Let's auto strut these. Let's auto strut this actually. Alright, this actually looks pretty good. 18K. And I think this should just about do the trick. So, looking here, right? Let's put this on 1. Aha, this is all goofy. So our first stage here. We separate. We got 1,083. That's already okay. So that we know is enough for orbit if it didn't have any payload. And then the second stage is going to be taking care of payload. So I want 12 tons to orbit. What is about 12 tons? Wow, that's a big, heavy tank. Okay. 10.2. 10.1 rather. 0.2. So let's just see. That's maybe our stand-in. One of those and one of those. That's about 12 tons. If I reroute this. Drop this off. Still a little shy of the 12-ton mark. Let's put something else on there. Okay, close enough. That's about 12 tons. So on a 12-ton payload, yeah, I've gotten to orbit with less than this. 400. This actually should be fine for a 12-ton payload. I do have to check the thrust to weight ratios here. 1.72, that is about the same that we have on the K24. Just a little less. Which drop off the solids. It's still a little less than 1, but by that point we should have burned through quite a bit of fuel. So that will go back up to positive. So it'll be a good sustainer engine. And then, I just realized my chat isn't up. Not that I was looking at it anyway. In the final bit, we've got a very low thrust to weight ratio. But at that point, we're just driving orbit. Our horizontal velocity, so we don't necessarily need that much. So I'm gonna save this anyway. I haven't tested it, but I'm gonna trust it. I'm gonna trust myself this time. I'm gonna start saving these and putting them aside so we can test them later when the time comes. The other side of this, I want to reroute this. So yeah, this is This is more cost effective. This is more like it. So that's about half of our K24. And that's appropriate because we're getting 12 tons. So we're still paying about the same per ton. So that definitely is what we want. If it works. I'm going to call this K12X1 because we haven't tested it. And then I'm not going to go and change all that much to go now and up the ante. I want to fill a couple different roles here. Less than full fueled. Somewhere in between a smaller tank and then this larger tank. So I won't need all that fuel, but I will need more. And then let's boost this up to 6 of these. So we can handle the extra weight on the ground. This gets me up to 23.5, still cheaper than our K24. And a lot cheaper than our K15. We're about 5,000 credits cheaper than our current K15. And this should be enough for 15 tons. So let's see. Let's take a 15-ton payload now. That's 18. That's 9. That's 4.5. About 15. Let's see. What about this guy? 10. So basically, be one of these, and one of these would be about 15 tons. So these numbers look about the same. 0.86 would have slightly more thrust weight ratio on the first, slightly less on the second. But that shouldn't be too bad. And of course our second stage should be able to burn longer. Looks about the same. The heavier payload. Okay. Yeah, I think this is about what we need. Might need to cut this down just a little bit more. What does that give us? It's 9.3. No, I guess it doesn't really make much of a difference, does it? 8.2 versus 8.3 on the thrust to weight ratio. So I think that would probably be the safer option right there. Again, the extra payload gone. 23.5 is, well, it's still pretty much right where we want it, cost-wise. So let's go ahead and drop this down, and this will be the K15 X1. This will be the replacement for our current K15. Mark II X1. Untested 15-ton. Low Kerbin orbit launcher. Cannot type. So there we go. I have a K15 test craft as well. And then fully fueled up top. Grab this one more time. We're gonna beef this all the way up to 8, which is, I think, all that will fit around this thing. Oh, yeah. And this makes it 27.6. Without the towers, exactly 26,000. All right. The towers we keep anyway, so keep them here in the ground. Now this actually somehow... Oh, I see. No, I don't. Somehow we get a higher thrust to weight ratio after separation than if we didn't do this with more fuel. Oh, I got you. So I don't have any payload on it. Duh. So this would be a K-18. This would be, again, with just 3-ton intervals. Should be one of these tanks right here, actually, is our payload. Yeah, okay, now it makes more sense. So, again, pretty close to the final Delta V. Delta V on all of these have been pretty much in the same place, and they're all more than enough to get to orbit, if I do it right. So this one just has a higher starting thrust to weight ratio than even the last one, a even lower sustainer thrust to weight ratio, and an even lower orbital completion stage here. But I think this is going to be what we want. And still, at 28, this is now as expensive as our current K-15. And our K-15, and is getting 3 more tons to orbit. So I think this is going to also be a keeper. So 27.6 for this. $28.7 for this. So yeah, definitely a more efficient option. If it works as intended. Even if it only gets us 15 tons to orbit. So okay, I've got those set aside. And I'm gonna not build a payload around the craft and launch another random fuel tank. I keep doing that. And at this point I have a lot of random fuel tanks lying around. Although I could stand to bring one to the Minmus station. Couldn't I? Well, alright, Steve, you've convinced me. Let's see what happens. Let's see if can I get a 18-ton. Does this carry fuel now? It does. Let's get rid of this. So I want an 18-ton fuel tank. This is already 4.5. I need some rudimentary control here. Well, let's at least give it the hex. Let's get to orbit a little bit. We do want to give it some source of power. I can put the solar panels inside here because we're not going to need them much. That works for me. Right. We'll need a communitron. We're gonna need a coupling point to go and refuel the Minmus station. I am gonna put an aerodynamic top to this. This one's cheaper. There we go. Slightly off balance. Boosters. So I can stage off the top of that like it's a fairing top. How heavy is this now? 14.283. So to get it, I can put just a little less than 4 tons on still. Really need it to have its own RCS thrusters because I'm going to end up docking this. Well, I guess I do need them a little bit. Let's just retract my statement right away. How heavy does this make that? That almost makes it the full 18 tons. That is less than ideal looking. Solar panels, so they're not going to get hit by the RCS thrusters. Go make the core back to its correct orientation. Okay, that's about, yep, that's right on point for my 18 tons. So I end up being able to challenge that one a little bit. I could do more if I was not obsessed with testing these vehicles out. Do a 24-ton launcher. But let's go ahead and let's give it a try. I always end up launching a fuel tank with one of these darn things to test them out. Now, if this 18-ton works, then my math should be on point. Where is it? Huh? Did I not save it? I don't think I saved the 18. But I did. Huh. Okay, well, we'll remake it. Wasn't that hard. Let's bring this back up to full. These back on, but 8 of them. I really thought I made the K-18. I remember typing it out even. Weird. Nope. Now it's there. Curb it. I can't type. Whatever. Whatever. We know what I was trying to say. Alright. So, let's give this a shot. So he's firing there at the base. Those are going to separate. That can fire along with actual boosters here. So all that will fire and expose the top there. This will then fire. Okay, yeah. This looks pretty good. 3,400. Really get me exactly 3,400? That's unbelievable. That's exactly what the charts will tell you is needed for curve and orbit. Not a single meter per second extra. All right, F it. Let's try it. So our first test of the K-18. First of our medium launchers. First of our new series of medium launchers, I should say. We want to time this to get into rendezvous with our nuclear transfer vehicle, which is here. So we're going to let that come around a little bit. Should be like right about there-ish. We're coming up on its perigee. Should have circularized its orbit. It would have made this a little easier, but I didn't have that kind of foresight. All right. Let's give it a go. Taking advantage of how cheap these solid rocket boosters are. Separate off. We're already pretty high up, so I'm just gonna immediately nose over. And this noses over much easier than everything else we've used so far. There's no roll to it at all, because we've got those two Thud engines on either side able to counteract any roll. So that already is winning major brownie points from me over the Bobcat. And as expected, we do have a slightly less than positive thruster-to-weight ratio going into this turn, but we've now burned through enough fuel that it is going positive once more. We're now just driving our apogee. Which actually is going fairly well. So I'm going to start tracking prograde, and actually just do a real prograde turn here. Proper gravity turn. high enough up, we can ditch the aerodynamic top there. Pretty good. This chase and prograde is looking pretty good. Actually, probably get a little ahead of it now at this point and just aim straight ahead, targeting orbit. Keep our horizontal speed going up as much as possible. Now giving us a nice shallow orbit, a shallow trajectory rather, just so our poodle can actually stand a chance of making it. Poodle's now doing his job. Poodle's struggling a little bit, so we're gonna just go back to chasing prograde now. Maybe a little more of a upwards angle here as well. Just the solar panels. Our power. Okay, we are keeping our apogee in front of us. We can now angle down a little bit more. Down a little bit more. We should probably angle down. Actually down. A little bit behind our transfer vehicle. Should have launched a little earlier. Okay, here we go. We're starting to hit our circularization. Okay, we're in orbit. Settle with that for a minute. Let's just see how much fuel I managed to get up. Since everything's all kind of clustered together. Move everything up forward. If this is a true 18-ton launcher, then all the fuel should be, all the fuel tanks should be full in the front. And only this back one should be empty. Because this is part of the launcher, this is part of the payload from here up. Wow. Okay. And then some. We actually have some leftover fuel. So yeah. Functional 18-ton launcher. So we need to raise our apogee a little bit and slow our rate of orbit here. So we can get a much better intersect here. So right here, we're actually closing our intersect. We're increasing our intersect here, but closing our intersect here. Not bad, not bad. I got a yup in the chat, and I agree. New medium launcher looks good. Okay, there's our closest we could get. From here, we're gonna have to do some kind of timing burn. Probably actually an altitude burn. Maybe not too bad. Let's try to get this intersect just a little closer. if there's an inclination difference. Let's check that out too. There's a slight inclination difference. So at ascending node, we'll do our next maneuver. So let's see, we want it's +5, so we want to go down 5. There we go. Okay, that goofs up our timing a little bit, but we can fix that. There we go, 0.1 intersect. That's what we needed. So we'll have just a 1-second burn, actually, with the Poodle engine. Which at this point, because I'm curious, can I get this thing all the way to rendezvous on just the launcher's propellant? Let's see. Let's see if I can. Let's tune down the Poodle. It'll be an easier burn to try and pull off at our next maneuver. Oh, that was the other thing I was supposed to do today, actually, is resume moon landings. So I'll have to do that as well. We'll have to do a moon landing tonight. Or I am wasting all this time with new launchers and everything else. And I'm missing the fun part. But getting a min-miss fuel on the way should be pretty cool. So let's warp closer to our maneuver. Oh, and that's right, I do need to launch a new Eve and Duna probe, since our current Eve probe exploded itself. Or I exploded it, I guess, is the correct way to phrase that. So, 2 seconds away from maneuver. We'll start our 4-second burn. Just gently sipping fuel. A little bit of correction. Can't wait till I unlock the probes that actually let you chase maneuver node. That'd be kind of cool. Alright. Should have a pretty dead-on intersect. We do indeed. So let's warp there. Let our craft get into position here as we rapidly approach our transfer vehicle. Back up to full throttle. Should be pretty quick to cancel out. Should be about a 1.5 second burn or so, probably. So I'll let us just get really close. Might as well. Okay, we're now station keeping with the nuclear vehicle, so we're going to orient ourselves to face it directly. Still have fuel, which is just amazing. So this actually might be just capable of launching a little more than 18 tons. Maybe closer to 19 tons. Okay, we're going to set that as our target from the nuclear transfer vehicle. So we're going into linear RCS mode. And let's try and dock. Oh, I didn't put in the RCS thrusters on this. Okay, that's right. The other thing has to do the... Yep, okay. Glad I didn't do that with both of them then. So, linear, RCS, there we go. For some reason I didn't put any actual thrusters on the nuclear vehicle. I don't know what the logic was there. I put fuel on it, I just didn't put any... I guess it would have been hard to do anyway since it's a tri port adapter. Kind of difficult to properly put RCS thrusters on it. So I got to remember any payload going up to it needs its own RCS. Let's angle this a little better. Oop, that's not what I wanted. Here we go. Okay, close that distance. Super expensive nuclear transfer vehicle. What do I do? Not put any maneuvering thrusters on it. But again, I don't think that's the end of the world. I think we're kind of actually probably fine. It just would have been a smart thing to do. Alright, heading on in. Nice and easy. I have a 24-ton transfer vehicle and an 18-ton fuel tank. A little more than 18 tons probably with the dead weight on it. We're just going to be very gentle about bringing these together. There we go. Looking real good there. Just a little more that way. Keeping it centered. Perfect. All right. Disable this engine here. Okay, that made a really cool sound. Now, control from our nuclear transfer vehicle. Let's prograde. Let's see if we can get ourselves on the way to Minmus. So I'm actually going to end up pushing this all the way there and then decoupling and letting it by itself dock with the station since it has only the one port. So let's see, where's Minmus right now? Let's see, we probably want to start our burn right about here. Might want to do the inclination maneuver first. Just make this a little easier, even though I hate doing that because it is less efficient to do the inclination maneuver in tight orbit. But in terms of maneuvering, it might just be simpler this time around. Let's plan that out. There we are. And courtesy of our underpowered nuclear engines at this point, that is a 2-minute 19-second burn time. So that's going to be a fun challenge. It's the only weakness with the nuclear engines. They are not very powerful. Insanely efficient, though. Now, I could use the chemical rockets to go ahead and do this burn as well. But the whole point of this is to get chemical rocket fuel to Minmus. So I don't want to use it. I don't want to use it if I don't have to. Meanwhile, this purely liquid fuel for the nuclear engines isn't going to do any chemical rockets any good. You need oxidizer for chemical rockets. So let's time warp in a little bit more. I want to be about a minute and 10 seconds away from our burn when we start. I could just do a couple of orbits and do this maneuver a few times. Just slowly correct it over the course of many orbits. But I'm impatient, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this insanely less efficient way. Nitpicky thing, but let's get the solar panels so they can actually see the sun. I'm sure it was fine, but just to alleviate myself of any panic. So a minute and 10 seconds out is where we want to start our burn. It could be a very long burn. We are collectively transferring quite a bit of tonnage here. 43 tons of vehicle getting transferred into another inclination in tight orbit. So not at all surprising that it takes a lot of Delta V, a lot of fuel. A little bit of correction. Let's go ahead and try to make that as quickly as we can. A little bit of wobble in this fuel tank because of the extra weight. Might need to auto strut that. But okay, maneuver's complete. We are actually on the correct inclination. Yeah, we're nearly the right inclination. We're actually off a little bit. Not enough for it to be an issue. That looks like our most efficient... our most efficient 7-minute burn. Oh, nuclear engines. Oh, you hurt my soul. Alright. Can't really do a burn that's that long in low orbit, so let's see. Investigating new challenges here. So this might be our interplanetary transfer vehicle then, because that's in Kerbin orbit. It's not doing so great. Let's see, how do we want to go about this? What I could do is just raise our orbit significantly first, and then try to do an actual rendezvous maneuver. That could probably work. Like watching the little... gimbal flip around like crazy. Alright. Just give ourselves a nice high circular orbit. And if I get this thing to min-miss, I'm going to leave it there, I think. Until we need to go to Duna or Eve. Because in terms of a Kerbin system transfer vehicle, this is not so great. Kill that first maneuver, I no longer need it. Let's just go for maybe geosynchronous level. Versus Van Allen belt radiation? Well, no, I was more referring to the nuclear engine radiation. Nuclear. Hilariously, these nerve engines are actually named after the real nuclear engines that were developed by NASA. The Nerva. Let's maybe go for like 2 million meters. And then let's see if I can get this back up to a circular orbit. Alright. So, okay, more reasonable, a 3-minute, 31-second burn when we come around there to circularize our orbit. So, time warp out there. Start lining myself up to do that burn. And we're just going to do things the least efficient way possible, aren't we? Using the most efficient engines, though, so I guess that's a thing. So let's switch this back over to stability assist. Aim for our target. We can time warp ourselves a little closer to our maneuver. We want to be about, so be 1 minute 30 seconds, 1 minute 45 seconds away from our maneuver node before we start burning. So we can actually accomplish a 3 minute 31 second burn. That's just so painful to look at. Okay. Coming up on burn. Alright. Now we start circularizing. Now, I think as a interplanetary transfer vehicle, this might actually do pretty good. Just maybe put more liquid fuel tanks for it to use up, and obviously a lighter standard payload than an 18-ton fuel tank. Just trying to move 43, almost 44 tons with 3 nuclear engines is not that effective. Overshot it a little bit, but that's fine. This is just a circularization maneuver anyway. Alright. We do one more ascending node correction. Just to make it a little easier. And then we can once again try and plan our rendezvous maneuver. Not a rendezvous, I guess, but our trans-minmus maneuver would be the proper term, I guess. We're down to 8 seconds of correction. Something that's a little more realistic. Finally. Now, if I'd realized I was going to have to do this, I should have done this first and then done the inclination change, because that inclination change did use a ton of fuel. So, that is a lesson learned. Inclination changes do take more fuel closer to the orbiting body that you're... I'm phrasing that weird. You use more fuel doing an inclination correction the closer you are to the body that you're orbiting. There we go. Now I sounded like I actually know what the heck I'm talking about. So, warp here. Still quite a ways out. Let's warp the rest of the way in. This is only an 8-second burn. Alright, so 4 seconds away from our maneuver, we are going to start burning. Try to get this as accurate as possible. This is a chore. So 4 seconds away. Here we go. Nailed it. All right. Finally, start planning out Min-Miss transfer once again. Okay, well that gives us a moon slingshot. We don't want a moon slingshot because that looks horrendous. Pretty close to where I needed to go. Right about there. Okay, now it's a 3-minute 40-second burn. Not the crazy 7-minute burn we had before. We actually reduce that a little bit and still get our desired result here. So one more that way, one more this way. Alright. Good enough. Good enough. Actually stand a chance of doing this maneuver. And I just killed it. Alright, that was smart. Why did I kill it? I don't know. But thankfully, I more or less remember where it was. Hey, we're actually saving a little tiny bit of fuel. Now the button I meant to press. A little time warp in. So, a minute 30 plus 20, minute 50. I want to be 1 minute 50 seconds away from the maneuver. Oh, the timescales on nuclear engines. So painful. Actually, auto aim prograde for a second should more or less get us to where we want to go. Stability assist again, so we can aim right at the actual maneuver node. So, alright. As I said, 1 minute 50 seconds away is where we want to do our burn. 1 minute 50 seconds from maneuver node. Good. This says our node hasn't come up yet. That's weird. Something's kind of funky there. But we are on a Min-Miss encounter. Alright, 8 days away. So in 8 days, we will get to Min-Miss and start bringing our fuel over, finally, to the Min-Miss station. And we're going to leave that transfer vehicle in Min-Miss orbit for use later. when we want to go off and explore Duna, or Eve, or Moho. Moho might actually be the easy one. Not bad. Well, since we have those 8 days to use, let's go ahead and do a moon landing. Totally boring, unexciting moon landing. Let's collect all that launch structure. Check on contracts. Okay. Maybe not. Maybe we're gonna do this thing again. Oh, Kerbal. Kerbal, why do you do these things? Kerbal! See if I can unbreak Kerbal for a second. Does this thing every now and again where it just doesn't want to let me click on any structures. I like that Dunstan's flag got knocked over. Space Center. If that doesn't work, I'll try clicking on that again and try recovering it. Now load the Space Center. Actually load the Space Center. Okay. Don't know why it does this. Is there like a hotkey to get into? Oh, I guess that would be here. There's nothing for controls. Why does it do this? Okay, let's try flying this and then recovering the vessel. So I don't lose all that progress I just had, because that's what happened last time this happened. I could go back to the last autosave probably. If I re-enable that, since I normally turn that off. Now let's recover this flag. Let's see what happens. Totally bug-free. Yep. Nope. It is busted. So let's see. Load save. Okay. Yep. I know. Not allowed. Oh, great. Can we? So let's change the settings. Allow quick loading. Load save. So persistent would be this one. It's actually done at 0. So okay, yeah, it was actually those 2-hour difference. So that's possibly good. Save. Quick save. It doesn't really show the autosave. Maybe that's the persistent, I guess. I've had this problem before. This is definitely a bug I wish they would just address. Yeah, see, this is now not working. So quick save 45. Try and restart the game. I really don't want to lose all that work I just did with the nuclear launch vehicle there, or nuclear transfer vehicle. And I just want to know, in the controls, is there a way to hotkey myself into the VAB? Doesn't look like it. So okay. I guess quit. Reload Kerbal. Oh, okay. Just even Steam doesn't want to seem to load. Okay, there we go. See if we can actually get to this darn Mun landing. Notice it was sinking. Not sure what it was sinking. Wonder if that has anything to do with it doing this bug. I mean, I need to send a little clip there to the devs and ask them what the heck is going on. super exciting. Most exciting part of the whole thing. Just waiting for loading screens. I don't know how very extreme computers can struggle with this game. Okay. Giving it another shot. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed it actually works. Hey, it actually works. Imagine that. It actually, to get rid of our Dunson's Triumph thing as well. That's kind of lame. So what I was going to do, I was going to check if we had any new contracts we could pick up, which we don't. And, pretty much settles it. Hope this saved my vehicles as well. It should have. It did. So we'll be able to rename this guy later. Our K18, which worked wonderfully. Hopefully then the K15 works just as well, and the K12 works just as well. But we'll find out later. It's a graphical glitch, which makes me worried. Okay, there we go. Oh, congratulations on my new Toyota I didn't buy. Thanks. Thanks, whoever sending me junk mail. Okay. Let's go over to Valentina Kerman Station and do a new moon landing. We have science to collect. All right. So I'm kind of tempted to go for this landing zone down here and kind of close out those contracts as well. It's kind of a large inclination difference to get there, though. I might just try for this one instead. That's coming up, actually. So that might be what I'd go for. Although it would be a repeat... would be a repeat landing. I have not gone for this crater yet. That could be another option. Might go for this crater. Try to get some science in the lab. Because we don't have a full lab here. This one can still fit a lot more data. This one's nearly full, though. So let's actually take one of the scientists out of here. Let's take Cambo. And he's going to take the primary lander. Which is looking like it's fully fueled at the moment, which is good. Not quite fully monoprop, but not a big deal. So Cambo. Little EVA. Stay clear of that last remaining solar panel, please. Okay, going for the primary lander. Why the lander can seems like it's getting its power drawn first. Oh, probably because the spotlight's on, huh? Turn that off. There we go. Undock him. Actually, it's like pretty exact. Almost 2,500 meters a second of delta V on this little guy. So let's go ahead and back ourselves away from the station a little bit, just to make sure we can do our maneuvers safely. I'm going to help out this this damaged RCS harness here and just deploy our spare solar panel. We're going to start figuring how we want to do this this landing here, because we're going to want to do a slight inclination change. Actually, probably right about now. So make sure we are clear of the station, which we're not. Let's clear ourselves a little more that way. We can turn our RCS back off. We can activate our engine. Back to staging mode. Actually, I didn't really need to do that maneuver because I'll be burning down, won't I? Well, let's just see what happens with the maneuver, shall we? We want, yeah, we do want to go down. So we want to do that. So we end up over that crater. So yes, instincts are correct. Cambo is on his way to the moon's surface. Or at least he's departing the station at this point. Not to be exact there. Should still put us over the crater. Yep. Now we want to start planning our descent burn. So we're going to want to overshoot a little bit where I want to go, because we're inevitably going to have to decelerate more to land so we don't smash into anything. So we just want to lightly overshoot. Right about there should do. And a nice clean path pretty much right through there. If I can at any point there slow down enough, I should have a pretty flat landing zone, at least from what I can tell from here. Won't line up just yet to the maneuver, because we do still need to detach our landing or docking harness. We don't need all that RCS for landing, and we definitely don't want the extra weight while we're trying to land and take off. So let's ditch that harness now. That way we're not carrying all that RCS fuel. We're not worrying about all that. On our lander, when we get to orbit, this can come and retrieve us, and then we can go in and dock with the station again. Now this should be up to full power, which it is. You can go ahead and retract the solar panel. Alright, now I can time warp the rest of the way up to our burn. Want to be about 6 seconds away. From our maneuver node. Yep, right about there. I just missed my window, but it's fine. I don't know why this wants to be so fidgety. Probably because I'm flying this with a scientist. A little bit of correction. Perfect. So there we are. We're heading for this large crater here. Which I'm controlling from the computer and not from the pilot seat, because we do not have a trained pilot. We have a scientist. There's the station, quite a ways off. Time warp was a little bit. Find a nice flat patch. Start doing our burn. Right about here. That should put us on that intended flat zone, which is right through there, more or less. So I'm going to thread the needle between all these larger craters, or smaller craters inside this massive crater, I guess. So we get a relatively flat surface. 24-second burn. I'm going to wait a little longer. Bull and Neil Armstrong, just wait a little longer before we start. So I don't want to end up there. So we're going to start right here. We're going to do retrograde assist. Is this fuel burning first? It is not. I did not set the fuel priority on the spare tank. That's why it's doing this weirdness. I see what's going on now. Forgot to set that on the main lander. Let's go ahead and transfer it into a centerline tank. Make it a little more balanced weight-wise. Intent is that would be burnt first, and give us only a very short period of time where we're burning asymmetrically. And that was supposed to be during landing, or the initial burn, so it shouldn't have actually hurt us. But failing to set that properly will definitely make a difference. Okay, we're coming down for what looks like a pretty flat patch. I'm not going to go too crazy decelerating now because we're still quite high up. And the longer time we spend at lower speed, the more fuel we're going to burn, since we're extending the amount of time that we are fighting the force of gravity. Oh, just a throwaway check on the crew report there. We're going to keep that just because we get something. Okay, now we're getting near where we probably want to start decelerating at least a little bit here. No longer concerning myself with maneuver nodes. We're going to just do this by eye. Because we're accelerating too much more. Again, suicide burns are actually the efficient way to do this, so I don't want to go too crazy. What does the ground look like under us now that we're almost flat? Altitude 2.3. 2.3 kilometers, so at 2,300. 1,360. So that's the altitude the ground should be at. 2,360. There we go. Now we're tracking the surface. Let's get quite close. So now, kind of a low speed suicide burn. So remember, 2,360 is the altitude of the ground below us. So we're getting pretty close now. Start accelerating a little bit. Kind of drop a little further. Looking for shadow. There we are. We learned from our broken lander. We do want to land at about 3 meters a second. $2,360. We're almost there. Just kind of balance it. Not too crazy. Just wasting fuel like a madman. There we go. That's got to be my gentlest landing. I don't know if I could possibly beat that one. All right. Deploy our extra solar panels. let's start getting science. Actually, I did reduce this down to 1 goo canister. I forgot about that. So I am going to reset the goo canister. And we're going to get our goo canister from the ground here. East crater. Let's keep that experiment. Pressure data from East crater. Temperature data from East crater. Crew report. There we go. Cambo can now EVA out. You can take a surface sample for some reason from the ladder. He can do that. EVA report as well. You can then store those experiments. He can take his data, store them again, so he takes his crew report and resets that. We can take data from the thermometer. We can take data from the barometer. We can go around and take the data from the goo canister and reset it. Totally routine. Get a little closer so we can take that goo. Oop. Nope, tip the craft. It's not a good idea. There we go. Collected that. You can also reset it. Perfect. That means we can take new readings. What I'm going to actually do, I'm going to just keep them and store them here on the actual equipment. And then we can put 1 copy of each experiment in each lab. Nice little cheaty move we can do. Now we can try and get a EVA while flying as well. Okay, we can plant the flag. So I know I've been to this crater. You got quite a far away from anywhere else. So I don't think we are going to be EVAing over to any other site here. I think this is just all we're going to manage to get this time around. I do like that the primary lander has the ladders fixed so we can climb right up. Alright, we have 7 experiments all stored in, plus 3 more on externally on the craft. Alright, pretty much ready to go. Gonna wait for our harness to come around, probably to right about here or so, and then we're gonna take off and try and meet it. And then we're going to allow it to dock to us and then return us to the station. So let's Let's time warp quite a bit. Cambo can just relax. And if the worst should happen, we have a retrieval unit right here, still in high Mooner orbit, ready to come and grab us and rescue us if there is an emergency. We'll head back to the station, refuel, drop off the science for the lab, and then I might try and go for one of these other landing sites. Actually, I might have a cool idea for something else later. I might try and set up tonight. So let's get rid of these. We'll retract those. We'll retract this. Be ready for takeoff. So we want to take off. We don't want to go exactly on the 90 line. We go just a little lower, right about here. Cool. Retrograde the target's what we were waiting for. We can start heading retrograde the target. Tract our landing gear. I want to watch our orbit carefully this time. I have a tendency to just go way too high, way too quick. Just go up a little bit. Case in point. Pretty good rendezvous coming up, actually. So right here, we'll just start to get ourselves back into orbit. Gets us a 1.8 intersect right here. If we go down a little bit, I'll go up a little bit then. Oh, missed our sweet spot. So 1.7 is our sweet spot there. We have a slight inclination difference, so we're going to have to correct that after the fact. So right about here. Oop, that makes it worse. This way. Okay, then we can do that, and then a timing change. Oh, had it there. There we go. Not bad. 2 burns to get to a rendezvous. So we'll get ready for our first burn. I do wish I had the new version of the Terrier engine when I designed this. It has a nice little cowling on it now. It'd be a lot easier to throw these landing legs on. Give it a little wider berth. But we'll just have nicer landers for Minmus then. We've yet to do a Minmus landing actually in this career. I went straight for moon, straight for the moon landings. But that's for a good reason. I intend to use Minmus as a refueling point for our nuclear craft. I intend to have a mining operation there since it is much lower gravity. So if I'm going to be doing that later than our moon expeditions, then it makes more sense to do the science and the mining hand in hand, where the moon is going to be more expensive to try and get on and off the surface. So I might as well do those ones first. So I can kill two birds with one stone later. Still quite a bit of delta V on this thing. There is definitely a decent margin for error built into this lander. Slight corrections. I overdid that one a little bit. Okay. Next maneuver is going to need very little thrust. So we're going to prepare for that one. It's the inclination change coming up in 11 minutes. We're going to probably time warp to this one. So 1 second away is where we'll do our burn. Then we'll get this thing back to the station, refuel it, and get it ready for another go. Pretty dead on burn, just a little bit of correction here. So our actual rendezvous to 0.5. It's not too shabby. I just made it a little bit worse, actually. So what's the major difference that we have in our orbit? Wouldn't then be inclination, it would be timing. Timing is different, so let's see. That would be a radial change, so relative to orbit, we want right here. Okay, that got us closer. Perfect. Easy solution. Alright, we only have 4.2 meters a second to try and equal out when we get there. So might as well leave our thrust limited. We're already almost on the same orbit. Just be a matter of lowering our apogee back down to matching our craft here. Oh, yeah. Perfect. Target retrograde. There we go. Station keeping with it. We'll go into docking mode. We're going to switch to rotational so we can go ahead and aim directly at it. Switch to it. Seems to be doing fine with just that one solar panel. So that is our target. Flip it around to the docking position. Okay. RCS on. Linear. Go fairly rapid with this because we have good braking. RCS off, do a quick roll maneuver, get us more or less in the same rotation, easier to dock later. Okay, then we want to go back to RCS on, in linear mode. Perfect. It's a very aggressive vehicle. It's not a lot of weight, a whole lot of RCS. All right, now we need to get ourselves set up to go back to Valentina Kerma Memorial Station. So we want to go to our ascending node, and we do want to line ourselves back up with the inclination of the station. Should be right about there. And while we're doing that, because we do want to catch up with the station, we do want to lower our perigee to about 40. Well, actually looking pretty good right here if I just keep going with it. Won't have to worry about too many rotations here. There we go. 0.3 is the sweet spot, looks like. Oh, missed it. Almost there. Almost there. I keep overshooting. About to give up and go with 0.4 because it is. There we go, 0.3. Finally got it. And we'll go up to full thrust. That'll make it a 3-second burn. Just limit it a little bit. Let's make it a 4-second burn if I can. It's easier to time that out. There we go. All right. Looking good. Time warp up to our maneuver. I know a lot of Kerbal players will just do direct ascents to moon landings, but boy, is this way more fun. Ah. Mm-hmm. Very nice. Very nice. Was controlling it from the wrong point. Try that again. There we go. A little bit of correction. See what that did to us. 0.3 still. Wait, no. That's the expected maneuver. Crud. Looks like a little bit of timing difference. Let's go back to orbit. Orbital view, and let's try and do a little bit of timing correction there. Looks like now 0.8's our sweet spot. You could probably go a little more prograde maybe. Let's see. Let's see if I can figure this out. Let's see if I can just wing it for a second. Not damage our intersect too much. Oh, had it there. So I was on the right track. So we want to way thrust limit this. We totally had it at a lower intersect. Also don't know why we only have stability assist at the moment. 0.7. Okay. Tiny bit of inclination difference, actually. That's surprising. We overshot our inclination. That's actually what messed us up. Yep. That's what messed us up. Okay, time warp to there. Cambo's excursion's actually going quite well. Anytime I do one of these moon landings on this craft and come back with a healthy chunk of fuel, I feel like I've accomplished something. There we go. That should be a perfect burn. It is indeed. Okay. So we're only going to have 17.2 meters a second of relative speed to correct with the station. So we're going to warp pretty close to there. And I will probably eyeball our braking maneuver to set us up with our approach. Now, oddly, I don't have this. Don't know why I don't have the prograde retrograde. What? Okay, that was weird. There we go. Retrograde. Retrograde to target. All right, 3, 2, 1, go. That looks pretty good. Almost lined up to our dock. Almost. So our dock is right there. Let's set that as our target. Go back to docking mode. Go switch that over to rotational. And we want to control from here now. Try and get our orientation with the station lined up. That looks about right. Go back to linear. Perfect. So now with enough forward movement, you can see on the nav ball where our prograde versus our aiming at target is. If you want to get this aiming directly over your point, you just keep your prograde on the other side of the actual target. So that tells you that you are gliding in this direction, which means you'll eventually end up directly over. Then you just cancel out your movement. Turn our solar panel so we don't accidentally clip our only remaining solar panel. A little bit of orientation correction. Looks like we're a little off. Looking good. Might need to just pitch a little bit that way. Okay, for the moment we're now heading directly towards that port. And we do indeed need to pitch a little bit, so we are going to switch back to rotational, RCS off. Okay. Puts us a little more aligned, looks like. Right about there. Go back to linear, turn RCS back on. We made that change, we'll line ourselves back up again. Good there. Nice, easy approach. And docked. Just that easy. All right. Now let's have Cambo, EVA. I'm going to have him collect everything that's currently in the lander can. He's going to take it up to this lab.